It was a wild scene in Times Square. 5 weeks ago, male model Crick McLean stripped down, got naked, and danced on top of the TKTS booth, yelling and taunting the police for nearly an hour.
He eventually jumped down 3 stories to the concrete below. He was arrested and spent 3 weeks in Bellevue Hospital. This past Friday, the charges against him were dropped.
And tonight, for the first time, we are hearing from him. He spoke exclusively with our Bauman today. Allie.
That's right. At 21 years old, Crick McLean is much more than a model. He's a painter, a political science student at Columbia University, and a loving son and brother. But after a very public, manic episode in Times Square back in June, McLean is adding a new title to his resume, advocating for mental health.
I couldn't handle, just being in the world.
Full frontal for thousands at the top of the TKTS booth in Times Square, June 30th. Crick McLean was hitting rock bottom when he says a manic episode of paranoia drove him to dance, yell, and spit in the nude toward police officers for nearly an hour.
Everything was fine. School was going well. Modeling was going well. I was doing my acting classes. Artistically, I was expressing myself. I couldn't have been in a better place in terms of my life and the direction I personally wanted to be in.
McLean has since been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and is undergoing therapy. Charges of public lewdness, disorderly conduct, and exposure were dropped on Friday. McLean says he remembers everything from that day, but now he's left trying to make sense of it.
I was paranoid that people were after me and that they were evil and that they were coming for me from all sides.
The former magazine and runway model says paranoia began to build the night before when leaving his family's home on Roosevelt Island. He took off his gold sneakers and slept outside, compelled to be one with nature.
I was in tears and I was crying and I felt so alone and so scared and so vulnerable. But I didn't want to involve my family in it because I thought that they would get hurt.
At dawn, McLean's paranoia was getting worse, so he headed for his apartment in Hell's Kitchen, soothing himself with song and dance. But he became transfixed by the signs in Times Square.
And I all of a sudden saw all of these messages, the Express advertisement, and it said, express yourself. How can I express myself now? And then I realized, oh my God, I need to take off my clothes and express myself to the fullest.
What happened next was anyone's worst nightmare. Thousands gawked at McLean's meltdown in the Buff. It wasn't until a few days after he woke up handcuffed in Bellevue Hospital that McLean realized his episode had spread around the world.
It just happened in a flash. I didn't even realize what was going on.
Now McLean hopes to start a discussion around bipolar disorder and help the millions of adults suffering with mental health issues.
I'm telling the story that was, that people might be able to understand and relate to.
Since his arrest, McLean has been dropped from Ford Models. He now faces disciplinary hearings with Columbia University, but still hopes to go back for his senior year in the fall.
Allie, now that he's been diagnosed, how is he working his way through all of this?
McLean tells me he's been doing a lot of art therapy. He was always a big fan of painting before, but that's really been helping him get through this time.
Good to see he's channeling that energy into something positive, right?
Try to center himself, right?
Yeah.
Allie, thanks so much.